God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you shall be able to bear it. In other words, if I got it, I can handle it. Because if I can't handle it, God wouldn't let me have it. So instead of listening to what the giants say, you need to listen to what God says. God has given us assurance in His Word that we can do all things through Christ who gives us the strength. We need to start listening to more of what God has said rather than listening to what we see. Israel saw the giants and doubted themselves, and it was because of what they saw that they figured they couldn't do what God said needed to be done. My brothers and sisters, as children of God, we don't walk by sight. Oh no, I thought I would tell you tonight, if you walk by sight, you're always going to stumble and fall. But as children of God, we have to be of the mindset that we're walking by faith. But even if what you see doesn't match up to what God has said, you still believe what God has said over and above what you see. It's written in the book of Romans in chapter 8 that we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. Listen to what God has said. God has already said in Romans chapter 8, what shall we then say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? Listen to what God has said. God has already said in Romans chapter 8, nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through Him that loved us. If we stop looking at what we see and just start listening to what God has said, we will overcome, we will get past, we will get through, and we will make it to the other side if we just listen to what God has said. God has already said that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. God has already said that greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. God has already said that weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. God has already said that things that are impossible with men are certainly possible with God. God has already said that He ought to be our shepherd and that we ought not want for anything. God has already said we can cast our cares on Him because He's the one who cares for us. God has already said that He will never leave us nor will He forsake us, so that we may boldly say that the Lord is my helper and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. And so the next time you face giants in your life, I mean the next time you encounter something that seems larger than you are, the next time you face something that looks like it's going to conquer and overcome you, don't look at it through your physical eyes. Look at it through eyes of faith, because when you look at it through eyes of faith, you'll see that the problem wasn't that bad. When you look at it through eyes of faith, you'll see that the battle wasn't that big. When you look at it through the eyes of faith, you can see that the conquest wasn't that contradictory. When you look at it through the eyes of faith, you can see the fight wasn't that fierce. When you look at it through the eyes of faith, you can see that there was a mission in all of your misery. When you look at it through the eyes of faith, you can even see goodness in the midst of your grief. Just stop looking at it through your physical eyes and start looking at it through eyes of faith. I like the fact that when Saul and all of his men were cowering down and running from Goliath, that God had a little shepherd boy who understood how to have faith in Him. David stepped up and wanted to know what would be the reward for the man who got rid of Israel's problem. And even when Saul looked at him, he said, "You are but a youth, and this man has been fighting since he was a youth." He said, "You can't go against such a mighty and a powerful man." But David didn't look at it through physical eyes. David looked at it through spiritual eyes. And David said, "The Lord had me deal with a lion and a bear who came into my flesh." and took one of my kids. David said, I grabbed him by the beard and shook him, and with my bare hands I killed him. God delivered me from the power of the lion and the bear, and the same God is going to deliver me from this uncircumcised Philistine. And so it was with that confidence that David walked up to 9-9. It was with that assurance that David walked up against Goliath, looked Goliath in the face and told him, I ain't scared of you. I'm going to make you as birds' food. I'm going to take your own sword and cut your head off, and I'm going to get rid of Israel's problem. I'm coming against you with the power of God in my hand. And with David stepped up to the plate, he hit a home run because he was playing on God's team. See, it makes a difference whose team you're playing on. Whenever you play for the wrong team, you'll always be an underdog. You'll always come up short. But when you play on God's side, when you fight for the army that cannot lose, it's a guaranteed victory. It doesn't mean that you won't get bruised every now and then. It don't mean that you won't get tired every now and then. It don't mean that you won't get discouraged every now and then. But if you keep your hand in the master's hand, you'll be able to say like Paul at the end of his life, when Paul said, I'm now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. Paul said, I fought me a good fight. I may have got bruised along the way. I may have got my lip busted and my eyes blackened, but I fought a good fight. Paul said, I finished my course. My knees sometimes buckled halfway around the track, but I kept on running. I had something in my eyesight that just wouldn't let me stop running. I had a goal set, had my eyes on the prize that just kept me on the track when I want to get sidetracked. So Paul says, I finished my course, and above all, he said, I kept the faith, which means I kept my hand in God's hand. I didn't give up when adversity came. Paul knew the value of holding on to God. When his rope of hope started to break, Paul could just reach beyond the break and hold on a little while longer. And then from that point, Paul says, from this day forward, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, in which the righteous judge shall give me at that day, and not just to me only, but to everybody that loves his appearing. What I'm showing you is that don't you get discouraged when you meet this giant. Don't you get dismayed when you meet that giant. Don't you get turned around when you meet that other giant, because they coming, but all you need is a smooth stone and a slingshot and the power of God on your side, and you can knock a giant on his back. The giants will keep on coming, but you got to keep on coming. David, I ain't scared of you. Went down there and got him 5 stones, but didn't need but one. When you're fighting with God on your side, God will give you the power you need to dismantle your giants. Somebody in here tonight dealing with some giants. You dealing with some big stuff. Some stuff that has altered the very course of your life. Sometimes folk lose their mind behind some of the stuff that we've gone through. Absolutely. Sometimes folk don't make it. They don't see the way to regroup. They decide that the only way out is to check out. Some folk don't make it. But when you know the Lord, when you know what you know, when you know who you know, when you know who got you, and when you know what you got, when you got what you got, when you got what you got, when you got what you got, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
healing.
I know the giants keep on coming.
Amen.